let's talk about practicing alone. How many strikes or thrusts should you be doing per day in order to improve? There are like many people who want to be good, but they don't want to put in the work. So if you want to be good, the reality is, unfortunately, that there's gonna be time commitment pretty much every day, and it's gonna be a lot. I would say at least half an hour each day, sometimes 1 hour, sometimes even 2 hours, depending on what you are doing, because you see, sword fighting is this is a motor skill, and you are building up a motor skill which comes from repetition. So if you do something once or twice or 200 times, you're not going to have it yet. If you think about walking, for example, how many steps have you taken in your lifetime, in a year? So it's the same thing as for everything else, like motor learning stuff. Repetition, 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 repetition. That's the key. So if we look into the historical sword fighting practices, let's say from Japan or somewhere else here, it was quite common to have 2 practice sessions per day, or at least 1. So one might be in the morning and the other one in the evening. During the day you had other duties. Unless you were like a professional soldier, then you could have like more practice time. But for more common people, it was like that. Sometimes you had only morning practice very early, and that's that. And then maybe you were teaching other people in the evening. But in between, you had like this. You had to work. So that was that, and the information I have like seen, there is, for example, Jigen-Ryu in Japan. They still practice the old way, and then we have from the Philippines and other places like records of how the practice was conducted, but it was a lot of repetition, and quite often alone. So not necessarily against an opponent, because you have to get the mechanics down. You have to refine the mechanics in order that your body will move efficiently. You're not spending too much energy for your sword or stepping. And then there are like these combinations that you can have like let's say 6 different strikes and let's say 6 different stepping patterns. And then you have combinations of those, and depending how you move forward, backward, sideways, if you have like combination strikes and things like that, so it kind of adds up. You end up having like thousands and thousands of combinations. So, and you have to have those, because then there is the opponent. So opponent can attack this way or that way, or they can attack with a combination. They can attack with different tactical applications. You have to be prepared for everything, and you have a training plan. Hopefully, you start from here and then you proceed. So once you learn this thing, you go to the next, and then to the next. But you learn this to the next. That's going to take some time. So it depends a little bit, like if you were in the military, you were maybe taught some basic techniques, how to use a sword. And these were quite enough for the battlefield, for example, because you were not alone typically. You had friends around you, so you only had to be able to manage like some kind of certain threats. But if you were noble, there was a possibility that you would have to fight duels, for example, 1-on-1, and then it gets much more complicated because your opponent is focusing on you, and you are focusing on your opponent, and you have to somehow be able to surprise them in order to win. And then there are like many different tactics how to do that. So there was like lots of things to learn. And then you had like different weapons. Sword is just one, spears, pole arms, spear and shield, sword and shield, knife, dagger, wrestling, the list goes on. So there was many things to learn, not too much time. So that's why there are basics to learn first. Big movements, powerful cuts, so that those will keep you alive, at least. That was the priority. Maybe not killing your opponent, but staying alive. And the number of cuts during day was something like 1,000 or 2,000 cuts. That'll take maybe half an hour each day if you know what to do. But it was not just like you are repeating one cut 1,000. No, it's like you are moving. You are doing different cuts, so one can be here, here. So you change. You know, there are different kind of cuts, cut combinations, different kind of movements and things like that. And that's according to a training plan. But something like 1,000 to 2,000. That's how when I really started practicing with the sword, I usually was clocking in something like 2,000, at least 1,000, quite often 2,000 cuts per day, including the move. So the movement was incorporated there. And you start off with a very light stick, because if you haven't done this volume before, it's gonna be tough for your body. And it's really easy to develop all kinds of stress injuries. So you can even just use your hand in the beginning, but maybe a very light or short stick. So it kind of resembles the sword. So if you have your training routine, then you do that, and once you can do that, then you will do one of the two things. You will take a longer stick, or keep the stick length the same as it was, but take a heavier stick. But this makes it a little bit more difficult, and then you proceed and you go through the routine with that, and then you increase the stick length and weight until you get into sword weight. So this is like maybe 1.1 or 1.2 kilograms. And the sticks I started with were just 200 grams. 1.2 kilograms, and I started with 200 gram stick because of the volume. And even so, I was ramping up slowly the weight. I got some stress injuries. And those are nasty because they will take you down from practicing for weeks or months, depending on how much did you go over your body's tolerance. But then eventually you will get here. And that's your goal. So as a practice routine, you can have whatever techniques you select and what kind of movement you select. Make a routine that has about 1,000 cuts or thrusts or both, depending on your style. And add to that already some movement. You can hit a target or just the air. I find that hitting to air is more difficult for many of us because, for example, it's easy to hit this kind of full strikes to air because these are not stopping, but once you start hitting these half strikes that are stopping and coming back to air, these are gonna be tricky to pull off unless you have conditioned your wrist and arm and body to tolerate that kind of stress. And it only comes with the endless repetition, but without too much resistance. It should be, the feeling should be always like light, quite light. And you may find that some part of your body will start burning out first. For me, it's usually my grip or this kind of part of the arm, forearm muscles. They start to burn out, and Then you take a break and you switch to your left arm. So you're practicing with both arms typically if you're practicing with one sword. So when this is resting, this is practicing. So you can utilize the time, and you will need the left arm later when you go to double weapons or sword and shield, so it's not wasted at all. Because using the shield, for example, it's the same as using the sword. The basic movements are the same. And when this gets tired, you switch here. So you can then plan to have like 1000 cuts with each arm, or 500 and 500, something like that. It doesn't matter too much, but 1000 in total, and you try to execute that in half an hour, let's say. So once you can do that, you can take a heavier sword or stick. Then it takes more time, and then you try to once again come back to the half an hour time slot. Yeah, it's gonna be tough. Maybe you can even do it in 20 minutes, depends on your skill level. But the thing is that if you don't have the mechanics right and the skill right, picking up too heavy a sword is going to result in injury for you with this kind of high number of repetition. And now remember, this is every day. There are no breaks. There are no rest days really, because we are not teaching for muscle endurance or anything like that. No, that's separate topic. We are just trying to learn the mechanics. So it's about the repetition, the motorics, programming your nervous system to be as efficient as possible and as fast as possible. Repetition, put in the work. That's the key. And if you can keep doing this, you will see your skill improving like dramatically, even just 1 year. So after something like about 1 million strikes, you are starting to be there, that now you can actually hit something. But remember, your training plan has to be good. So you have to know what you are doing. So in that respect, if you don't know what you are doing, you are likely to injure yourself and you will quit. So maybe find somebody to show you, or maybe go online and have a look like somebody that actually know what they are doing, and try to copy that. And if anything starts to hurt during the practice session, I mean like really hurt, it's not just things getting tired, or the next day, you need to take a break for safety, because otherwise you are developing a stress injury, and that will put you out of the game for weeks or months. So pay attention to your body with this high repetition numbers.